Welcome back to The Ed Show, and thanks for watching tonight. We continue our discussion. Back with us, Garrett Lamp, a firefighter in Orlando, Florida. Michael Weinman, a retired police officer from Columbus, Ohio, and also former RNC chairman Michael Steele. These two middle-class workers have left the Republican Party, and Mr. Steele kind enough to join us tonight to give some insight as to exactly what the political landscape is. The president recently has been very clear on this issue on the Ryan budget. He went so far as to say that it is radical. Mr. Steele, can you respond to that?
Well, I think that's part of the problem right now. Quite frankly, a lot of the hot rhetoric makes it much more difficult to come to consensus. I mean, this was the same president who stood before the Republican caucus in January and said, we don't want to go down that road. We don't want to call things, extreme this and radical that and make all that kind of noise. And then to get the leadership in front of him in speeches in the last week or so and do that makes it much more difficult to address the very concerns that the firefighters and policemen and teachers have out there on a broader national level. And I'd like to see that change because I think that's where we need to begin.
Mr. Lamp, do you think it's radical to go after collective bargaining and eliminate it?
Absolutely. And what Michael said is we're pretty much blindsided. They certainly didn't campaign on this. And there were some rumors. And I'm still trying to figure out how axing my union dues for my paycheck is creating jobs and stimulating the economy.
Mr. Weinman, if you had a question to ask Mr. Steele, what would it be? I want to give you a chance to converse with him on exactly why you left the party and what direction the party is going to go.
Well, I'd like to know when public employees became enemies.
Well, look, I can only speak for me. I can only speak for my tenure as RNC chairman, and I can only speak, of the leadership that I brought to the table as lieutenant governor of my state of Maryland. I do not and did not, as chairman, see public employees as the enemy, and I believe that that is a lot of the same rhetoric out there that makes it very difficult. Makes it very difficult to address.
Mr. Steele, it's not rhetoric.
Wait a minute.
No, wait a minute.
Let me finish the point. The point is this. You've got to understand.
That you have to understand.
Collective bargaining agreements that governors are dealing with, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are decisions that were made up to 10 years ago that are now coming home to be paid for.
Mr.
So
Steele,
you've got to take a look at the process.
Mr. Steele, in Wisconsin, it would eliminate collective bargaining. Now, is that a radical policy or not? These two middle classers tonight are saying that that's radical, that is taking away their right to get together and try to get a better life for themselves. And I want to ask you, you talked about you personally with the RNC. Where is the Republican Party now? Why are they going after labor the way they are?
You have to ask the RNC chairman that, because I don't speak.
Well, let me ask you this.
Let me be clear. I do not speak for the Republican Party anymore.
Fair enough.
And so if you want to know that, get Ryan Priebus on the show and ask him.
But I think you can give some insight with your experience because you were very successful as an RNC chairman. You won a lot of elections. Is the Republican Party going down the right path to turn off these two middle classers who used to be Republicans and are now saying that the party has left them? What do you say to them?
Well, I think you've got to do a couple of things here. One, I think you've got to separate the national party from what an individual governor does in his or her state.
Garrett Lamp, can you do that?
And that is not necessarily representative of what Bob McDonnell is doing in Virginia or what Haley Barbour is doing in Mississippi or Mitch Daniels was doing in Indiana.
It's going to be difficult, but without a doubt, what's going on in Florida had a huge impact on my decision because what's going on in the state, it's almost like they're just on a feeding frenzy after the public employee and the middle class and the guy that swings a hammer on the weekdays and guys that are just working hard trying to make it through every Friday to get that paycheck.
All right, the next point I want to bring up is shared sacrifice. The president has talked about that. The Democrats have asked for shared sacrifice. Mr. Weinman, how do you feel about taxes possibly going up on the top 2%? Would you be in favor of that?
I'd have to look at how these taxes would be raised. Definitely, this whole shift from, it just seems as though the middle class and the poor in this country are getting picked on with the taxes. They're definitely shouldering more and more of the tax burden in this country.
Garrett, you believe that?
I totally agree with it. And, the higher you climb on the income scale, the more things you have to write off, which at the end of the day, the less taxes you have to pay. So I totally agree with Mike, and he's right about that.
And your final question for you, Mr. Steele.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that reducing the personal income tax from 35 to 25%, do you think that's a political winner for the Republicans?
Well, since that's part of the debt commission that the president has put together, has recommended a 23% top rate, yeah, I think 25% would be a good start.
Okay, so you give no validity whatsoever to the recent polling, numerous polls recently, that the majority of Americans want to see shared sacrifice from the top 2%.
Well, look, everybody's paying and playing right now. You've got the top 5%. The average income is $114,000 a year. I don't know what the salary, the combined salaries of these gentlemen is.
But the question was, is it a political winner? Is it a political winner for the Republicans?
But wait a minute. If they're making, gentlemen, if you're making more than $250,000 under this administration's plan, you're considered rich. And you're now part of that top 2%.
That's all I need to hear, Mr. Steele. You've said it. You've said it all tonight. You want to give tax breaks to the top 2% and beyond.
I want to give tax breaks to every American across the board.
Your party didn't do that. Garrett Lamp, Michael Weinman, and Michael Steele, great to have you guys with us tonight. I appreciate the conversation so much. Coming up, Donald Trump's birther flip-flop. And new poll shows him doing as well as an independent. Oh, come on, folks. You know it's my endorsement that's turning this thing around. President Obama takes action today on rising gas prices, and one of his targets is speculation in the oil market, exactly what we've been talking about here on The Ed Show in recent weeks. That's next.